Good afternoon. My name is Kelly Lang, and I am a social studies teacher at the Connecticut River Academy. And I'm here to talk to you about a lesson that I was able to implement with my students. Well, I decided to teach my students about the history of Connecticut and how it was settled. First thing we did was we read two articles directly from the website connecticuthistory.org, where it talked about the original settlements of Connecticut and the Connecticut River Valley and how that was settled. And the students were able to write the answers to the questions I had posed to them. And that way I was able to do a check for understanding to make sure that the students were meeting the objective that I had set for the class. After that, that's when the fun began. We, that week, had access to the giant traveling map of Connecticut. And one of the activities that came with the giant traveling map was an activity where the students were to take cups and place those cups over different locations in Connecticut to analyze it. And so I modified that lesson because it was originally meant for elementary school students, and I teach high school students. And I modified it so that the students did a scavenger originally where they got to know the big giant map of Connecticut. They got on this room-sized map in their socks, and they located states that bordered Connecticut, major geographical features, and things just to get themselves oriented with the map. And then afterwards, I gave them blue cups, and I had them put the blue cups on cities that developed along rivers and towns that developed along rivers. And then I gave them red cups, and I had them put the red cups over towns that were landlocked and cities that were landlocked. And then we kind of looked at how many red cups were there versus how many blue cups. And the students noticed there were a lot more blue cups. And that was able to lead to really rich discussion on, okay, well, why were there more blue cups? Why did people choose to settle in River Valley versus in the landlocked areas? And then we kind of connected that back to the original reading that we did. Then the students went back to the classroom and they did a Socratic seminar, which is where you have an inside circle and an outside circle. Your outside circle's observing your inside circle and taking notes. Your inside circle is discussing some questions. And so again, we looked at why did people choose to settle in the Connecticut River Valley, what might have been some of the factors there, drawing from what they did with the map and from the readings that they had read earlier. We also looked at the routes that they could have taken from Massachusetts, again connecting it back to water and transportation routes. And then in one of my classes that goes a little bit faster, we actually had some extra time, so I did an extension activity, which the kids really enjoyed, where I separated them into teams. Each team consisted of about 4 or 5 students, and each team lined up with different colored rings. And I would ask the kids questions such as, toss your ring to the first European settlement in Connecticut. And they'd have 5 seconds to toss the ring, and whoever got closest got a point. And then the kid who tossed the ring would go to the end of the line, and then the new kid from the team would emerge, and I'd ask another question. For example, I'd say, toss your ring to a city in Connecticut on the Connecticut River that begins with the letter S. And again, they'd have 5 seconds, and whoever got the closest would win. And the kids really enjoyed being able to interact with the map in a kinesthetic way. I really feel like they benefited from having the reading, the writing, and then the visual and the kinesthetic all connected into the lesson. And that really goes with my teaching philosophy with the students. Lastly, I wanted to talk about how this all connected to the National Geographic framework. First, I feel like the students were able to get a knowledge of our human story from this, which is where we live and why we live in the places that we do, because they were able to actually look at the settlement of Connecticut and why the white Europeans chose to settle in the areas in which they did. I also feel like the students were able to gain 2 different skills. Observation, by making the different observations, whether it was through the ring toss game or with the red and blue cups. They were observing different aspects of the map, or with the scavenger hunt as well, they were also observing. And lastly, communication. When we were able to do the discussion questions at the end through the Socratic seminar, I feel like that was able to enhance the skill of communication for my students. So overall, I think the lesson went great. Again, it connected to different learning modalities. The kids really enjoyed it and had a lot of fun with it. And I was able to get more participation. A lot of times when we do reading, you have the same kids that want to speak and add to the discussion. But now that the kids were able to interact with the map on a more kinesthetic level and to get on the map and really kind of visually look at it and play with it, in addition to reading about it, I had 100% participation in student engagement with the lesson. And for that reason, I thought it went well.